It's a hilariously fun day in the world of Magic the Gathering. The Modern Horizons leakers have decided to strike back and get vengeance on Wizards of the Coast for their smack talking. And as a result, we have another massive mega leak of cards to look at.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another fun installment of Mega Magic News Ultra Vengeance Edition. So, the Modern Horizons 3 leakers have gotten upset about Wizards of the Coast smack talking them. If you did not see the previous spoiler video, Wizards went, hey, you know what? We're going to show you the cards that got leaked. You don't got to deal with Mr. Potato Head and his potato cams. And the leakers were like, son, you ain't doing that to me. So they went ahead and did a massive dump of cards in retaliation. And one of the things they've done as a result, we'll actually talk about when we get into the spoilers, because you can see that they were actually genuinely bothered by Wizards of the Coast calling them potato cam boys. We're living in a universe I never expected to be in, and I'm having so much fun with these leaks. So let's take a bunch of looks at awesome magic cards. So the first card we're looking at is Mutated Cultist, and this is going to spike the demand for Dark Depths even higher than it already is, because this is wild. 1 black and 2 for a 1/3 Eldrazi horror that has Devoid, so it counts as colorless. When you cast this spell, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent or opponent. The next spell you cast this turn costs 1 less to cast for each counter removed this way. So you can remove all of the counters off of Dark Depths, get your gigantic beast from that land, and then have a massive discount for the next spell you want to cast. And if it's colorless, guess what? You're just going to be able to go bam, slap it out without having to worry about anything. This is going to be absolutely bonkers. Not just putting out Merit Lage, but also getting a giant Eldrazi on top of it. I mean, the 1/3 stats on this guy aren't too hot, but he does have Death Touch, which is a nice little thing to have on there where it's like, hey, he's done his job. Now he can be thrown away to gork somebody with his Death Touch. Just use him as a chump blocker, right? And the flavor text is a lot of fun. It tirelessly gurgles Emrakul's blessings from inhuman mouths. It honestly kind of makes me think of cultists of Nurgle from Warhammer and the blessings of corruption, right? This is a very powerful effect when used properly, and the flavor of it is a lot of fun. Look at the artwork. You can see this dude has been horribly mutated. He has multiple faces. You got the one that's facing forward and this tiny little tentacle face that's coming off the side. And if his cowl was pulled down and you just saw the first face and then he went like this, wha-bam, or just like, actually forget him going wha-bam. Imagine the tentacles push their way out to make space for that face. You think you're just dealing with a one-faced dude? Nah, son, it's two-faced. This is some super flavor and some super fun at the same time. After that, we've got Eldritch Immunity. 1 colorless, target creature you control gains protection from each color until end of turn. But it's got Overload if you want to go ham, so you can pay a colorless and 4, and then all of your creatures are going to gain protection from each color until end of turn. So only colorless things can mess with them, and that has the total proper Eldrazi vibe. The flavor text says, the hail of arrows flew straight and true, but as the arrows got close, They simply ceased to be. That is such an amazing concept, right? You're going to be dealing with a bunch of different kinds of magic in terms of counter spells where blue magic envelops your fire and pulls it away, or your magic just disintegrates mid-air. But this is literally ceasing to exist in a heartbeat, and it's basically the Eldrazi's immune system kicking in and destroying all threats to them naturally by erasing the threat entirely. That is awesome. And the artwork looks absolutely insane. Look at the scope of it. You have these different little individuals who are totally doomed, but ultimately very heroic, facing down this Eldrazi monstrosity. They loose their arrows in unison, going, maybe if we hit it with enough firepower, it will stop, we'll take it down. But instead, the arrows never make it to their target, and you don't even see what happened to them. They're just gone, along with your hope. That is super, super flavorful. After that, we've got one of the responses of the leakers where they just went, okay, you know what? If you're going to make fun of our potato cam leaks, then we're just going to take pre-existing images of cards and modify them to show the symbol. So basically what's going on here is Forsaken Monument is a reprint. So it is in the commander decks that got leaked, but instead of giving us a grainy leak image, they went ahead and edited in the symbol onto this card. And that's why if you notice at the bottom, it doesn't have any collector number or anything like that. That's because this is a digital mock-up because the leakers got mocked up by Wizards going, eat it, potato cam boys. So I find this response of the leakers not only just going mega leak time, but also going, fine, if you're going to make fun of our leaks, then we're going to use your images to do it better. Now, Forsaken Monument is obviously an awesome include when it comes to Eldrazification, right? It's a 5 casting cost legendary artifact, gives all your colorless guys +2/+2, so your Eldrazi are beefier. And whenever you tap a permanent for a colorless, add an extra colorless. Why not? We'll just give you a built-in mana flare. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, gain 2 life. This is a super fun card, and I love the fact that the monument itself is there in the middle. You might not realize that's an Eldrazi. Like, that's an Eldrazi monument hunched forwards. I love all the floating rocks that exist in Zendikar. Zendikar has some of the most interesting landscapes and just overall world building out of a lot of the different magic sets. The way they started with the Eldrazi being actually so long forgotten that people worship them as gods, but under different names without realizing that they're actually complete destructive forces that are not in any way going to help them if they pray. Flavor text says, "We shall forever roam." The flavor text doesn't do much for me, but just the kind of forlorn nature of this artwork, I really dig it. We have another reprint in the form of All Is Dust. This is an awesome Eldrazi style card. 7 casting cost. You'll notice that it says tribal sorcery. When we see the new version, it will say kindred because tribal has been changed to kindred. So remember, this is a digital mock-up. That's why you'll also notice the expansion symbols will shift a little bit. The previous one was a little bit lower. So this is a sorcery Eldrazi spell that says each player sacrifices all permanents they control that are 1 or more colors. I really enjoy this as a board wipe because most board wipes say destroy or exile, where this specifically says sacrifice. And this is before, like they made this before they started making more effects that exile. So this was a much stronger board wipe style where it's like, hey, it doesn't matter if you have indestructible. If it's colored, it gets destroyed anyway. The Eldrazi are so powerful that even what is normally indestructible is instantly taken down by them. The flavor text says, the emergence of the Eldrazi isn't necessarily a bad thing, as long as you've already lived a fulfilling and complete life without regrets. That is some fun flavor text. And the artwork is also a lot of fun as well. You can see this Eldrazi just, it's like he's letting out this crazy scream. And as he does, you can see just the first effect of it, the wave of dust and explosion. It really does look like a natural disaster. If you've ever watched a YouTube video where there's a tsunami or some massive explosion, it's got that kind of a vibe and inevitability to it. I really, really like this card. After that, we've got Bloodbraid Challenger. 1 green, 1 red, and 3 for a souped-up Bloodbraid elf. It's an elven berserker. He's 4/3 with Cascade and Haste, and he has Escape of 5 mana. Exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. And the fact that he has a higher casting cost than Bloodbraid Elf actually makes him more powerful in one way. Sure, it costs more to cast him, but it also means your Cascade is going to be stronger too. The flavor text says, Hassal knew hunting in the Rip would be dangerous. He didn't know it would be so much fun. It is a pretty crazy concept that this guy can come back from death. He just goes charging in. Oh, bro, I'm an insane berserker. But guess what? I've lived many lives. And 4/3, I mean, it's a +1/+1 upgrade over the Bloodbraid Elf as well. So this is a very solid card. And I enjoy the action that's going on where you can see this guy just charging forwards fearlessly as spears are falling all around him. You see 4, maybe 5 spears in the background, and it almost looks like the first spear either landed right in front of him and it'd be quivering as he ran by it, or he batted it out of the way, right? Remember, regular human tokens in this game are like 1/1s. This guy is a 4/3. He's like a Mack truck, bigger than an elephant, son. After that, we got Tempt with Mayhem. 2 red and 1 for an instant with Tempting Offer. Choose target instant or sorcery spell. Each opponent may copy that spell and may choose new targets for the copy they control. You copy that spell once plus an additional time for each opponent who copied the spell this way. You may choose new targets for the copies you control. For me, I hate cards like this. I do not like giving my opponent bonuses. I don't like sharing my cards. I don't like handing over my permanents. I don't like letting them copy my stuff. But on the other hand, this isn't automatically copying your own stuff. You're copying your opponent's stuff if you want to. And then on top of that, if people choose to make more copies, then you get more copies. So that is pretty interesting overall. And I mean, in a big game of Commander, this could really muck things up. So while it's not exactly my cup of tea, and I would never play this in a one-on-one game of Magic, I do see its potential, but for me, it's not a win. The artwork is pretty amazing, though. You've got what I assume is Judith in the middle of a Rakdos destruction carnival. And the Rakdos are one of the most fun guilds on Ravnica because all the other guilds, with maybe the exception of the Dimir, exist to serve functions in society. And while the Rakdos guild does serve the function of providing entertainment, ultimately, they're insane cultists that have no value for theirs or their audience's lives. And that is a very neat concept. And you can see in the artwork just how dangerous it would be to be part of their show. And there would be some people who wouldn't be able to help themselves. There's some crazy people out there. After that, we've got Pyrogoyf. This is an insane Tarmogoyf. 1 red and 3. Its power and toughness, like all the Goyfs we've seen, are equal to the card types amongst the cards you have in graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that +1, right? So you've got that connection to the Tarmogoyf. But whenever Pyrogoyf or another Lurgoyf creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature deals damage equal to its power to any target. Imagine that escape Goyf that we saw in the last video being comboed up with this. Every time you bring it back, bam, you could do up to like 7 or 8 damage depending on how your graveyard's arrayed to any target. Planeswalkers, creatures, players, whatever you want. The artwork, I mean, if I'm being real, it looks to me like almost like a Flame Tongue Kevu. Like that used to be, for 4 mana, you'd get a 4/2 that would do 4 damage to target creature. But this is super hyped up. And I do like the fact that essentially it looks like the entire world is a flame. Look behind him. Everything's got that red, rosy energy to it. So it's got a lot of heat coming from it. And I dig the vibe. Moving on. we've got Sour Nemesis. I can't believe this card, man. Magic has come so far from the old days. 1 red and 3 for a 2/4. As it enters the battlefield, choose a player. If a source would deal damage to the chosen player or a permanent they control, it deals double that damage instead. Now, admittedly, in a commander deck, maybe this isn't exciting because you can only pick one guy to get, but in one-on-one Magic, this is just, you always pick your opponent. Guess what? I'm going to rail you twice as hard as I was going to. Like, bro, Furnace of Wrath came out a million years ago, and it was 4 mana, but 3 of it was red, and it made everybody and everything take double damage. This is a specifically targeted to your opponent damage doubler that hits the opponent, hits all their permanents, and it's a 2/4. So it functionally operates as a 4/4 when you're playing it in a straight up one-on-one game. And I think what's even crazier than that is I recognize that ultimately this card isn't that strong by today's standards. Magic is really, really power crept hardcore. But oh, he's a dinosaur too! Bro, I got so like swept away by the power level of the card that I never noticed when I looked at it before that he's a dinosaur. Dinosaur players are gonna have a field day with this. It's an ultimately like feel-good effect where it feels amazing to smash with double power and crush your opponents. And I like big, dumb green creatures. So what a great choice to make it a dinosaur. After that, we've got Exterminator Magmark. Well, this is what, Ed 209? Failure to comply in 10 seconds. All right, 1 red, 1 black, and 2 for a 5/3. Have you guys seen the original RoboCop? I saw that. My buddy's parents let us watch it when I was a little kid. Don't let little kids watch RoboCop, man. He got his arms blown off and stuff. It's wild. It's wild. The one guy's melting. He gets hit by a truck. That guy gets kneecapped with a grenade. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Anyways, let's not get too much off on an aside. 4 mana, 5/3, Phyrexian Construct. It doesn't feel Phyrexian when I look at the artwork. Honestly, it feels like the weird little Nomi goofbags that we saw in Ixalan. So, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single non-land permanent opponent controls, if another opponent controls 1 or more non-land permanents that spell could target, choose one of those permanents, copy that spell. The copy targets the chosen permanent, and it's got 1 black and 1 regenerate. Now, regenerate in this ability, we rarely get to see anymore. It's really, really strong. In some ways, it's more enjoyable than indestructible, but I mean, ultimately, indestructible is like always on and always going, but I've always really liked the concept of regenerate, and it makes me happy to see it return. Now, in terms of the actual ability where you can target, like, okay, I targeted your guy. If you've got another permanent that can be targeted by that, that's not too shabby. So if you're playing Commander, you're going to get to go, oh, bam, I destroyed one of your creatures with this instant. Now I get to pick one of yours. That equals multi-value. So that part of it is pretty sweet. But, I mean, from a one-on-one perspective, meh. 5/3 regenerator for 4 that doesn't actually do anything else isn't gonna move the needle for me. I do like the fact that you can, if you're targeting one other permanent with it, you can go 1 arm over here, 1 arm over here. Actually, never mind, he's got what looks like 2 little ports on his chest that could also blast out beams that would cover like up to 4 different players. Either way, this doesn't really feel Phyrexian to me, right? Where's the Phyrexian aspect of it? There's no fleshy nature to it. There's no black dripping viscous goo of Phyrexian oil that will turn you into a Phyrexian. So, After that, we've got aggressive Biomancy. 1 blue, 1 green, and double X. Create X tokens that are copies of target creature you control, except they have, when this creature enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. I love this. I would absolutely put this in my cube. Not only do you get to make a bunch of copies of your dude, but when they show up, they're like, yo, who's ready to get claw grabbed to the face, right? This is the Simic going wild. And they all do these crazy bio experiments where they jam different kind of animals together, where they take humanoids and go, what if you had a crazy claw and some donkey tails? And it's like, oh, I don't know about the donkey tails, but the crab claw, that sounds okay. Flavor Text says, I'm an esteemed scientist. Base violence is beneath me. Luckily, it's not beneath my subjects. And that's attributed to a civic biomancer by the name of Gulistan. I really like it. And I really dig the artwork here too. I wonder what this originally was going to be used for, because understand, almost all the artwork from Modern Horizons 3 is slush artwork, which is artwork that was once supposed to be used in a previous set, but for one reason or another got cut from the set. So this right here was supposed to show up in one of the sets where we were on Ravnica, maybe the most recent one. Either way, I find the artwork to be really, really striking. And I want to know what that aura around this Simic beast is, where it's got all the different arrows pointing out as well. It's got a whole menacing aura to it. I do like the fact that you can see all the clones being created around it. If you didn't know, the blue and white energy that's shown there is more copies of this dude coming into existence. That's pretty neat. After that, gluttonous Hellkite Daddy wants to eat. 1 green, 1 red and black, and then double X. And you get a 3/3 dragon that says when you cast this spell, each player sacrifices X creatures. So it can be used as a board wipe if you have enough mana to smoke all the creatures on the board. And he enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it for each creature sacrificed this way. I like this not just for the board wipe capabilities, but the 2 +1/+1 counters mimics the devour ability, where when you're devouring creatures, you get +1/+1s, right? And the flavor text says its maw opens and entire species disappear. Oh, I forgot to mention it's a flying trampler. So, like, even if you just get rid of 2 creatures with this, if you just did this for 1 in a 2-player game and you each sacrifice 1 creature, he has 4 +1/+1 counters on him. So he's already a 7/7 flying trampler just from eating 2 dudes. This thing is going to be a giant game ender. And the artwork showing it flying there while these Avens are trying to escape, it's just unhinging its jaw going, it's dinner time. This is mega epic. All will be food. After that, we've got selective obliteration. So if you don't want to go with all this dust, you can go this route. 2 colorless and 3. Each player chooses a color. Then exile each permanent unless it's colorless, or it's only the color its controller chose. So if you have multicolored cards like a white blue and you choose white, guess what? Your white blue cards are gone. You only get to keep that one color. And it's full on exile. This is super, super strong as a concept. I mean, I don't know. 5 mana compared to 7 mana for all its dust, and they do get to keep, like, if they're playing monocolor, they do get to keep all the cards of that color. So it's gonna be more situational where it's not automatically gonna be crazy, but feels really nutty, and it's something that I would absolutely try out in my cube. Plus, I love the flavor text on this, right? So what's going on in the artwork, so you'll understand the flavor text, is this is the Eldrazi turning everybody essentially to bone, right? This is what happens as an effect just of being near the Eldrazi. That immune system reaction we talked about, it has other effects as well, where basically, you get calcified and just left there. The flavor text says, I don't know what's worse, that my family was taken or that I wasn't. And unlike other things that are removed from existence, your family are there, petrified as statues in their horrified last frozen moments, almost like people we've seen like caught in a volcanic blast where they were preserved. Oh, it's absolutely just heartrending if you think about it, which makes it really cool and really flavorful. I enjoy Magic cards that can make me feel and tell me a story, right? After that, Broodmate Tyrant, a green, a red, and a black, and 4 for a 5/5 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying, and it's got Encore for 8, so you can bring it back from your graveyard, and it will literally make a copy of it'll go, here you go, have another 5/5 dragon, right? That's nutty. Karthus was not the first Tyrant of Jund, nor will he be the last. Hey, a nice nod to Karthus, which is a dragon people are a big fan of. The artwork shows a pretty beefy looking dragon, but ultimately, other than that, there's not much going on with the art. So it feels pretty run-of-the-mill. I could almost pass over this art as some random uncommon. Next up, we've got Infested Thrinax. 1 green, 1 black, and 3 for a 4/4 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, until end of turn, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a number of 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens equal to that creature's power. This is fun because that's like an instant style spell on top of a creature, and the old Thrynax was 3 mana for a 3/3, then when it died, gave you 3 1/1s. So the idea that this one is infested in a way where it spreads that to everybody, I kind of picture it as those quills on its back firing out in all these different directions, and anything that gets touched by it, it gets burrowed into, and you get the equivalent of worms, but they're sapperlings. And so if you die within a short time frame, those worms are able to overcome your now dead immune system and sprout out, feeding off your body. But if the turn ends, then your immune system is strong enough to overcome the effects of the spine, right? That's a cool concept. The flavor text says, Jund doesn't have a food chain so much as a mass feeding frenzy. Yep, it's eat or be eaten in that world. I dig this card. This will definitely get space in my cube, bro. Because if you look at it, it's an amazing response to like a Wrath. Instant speed, put out my Thrynax, all my guys die, but from their corpses come endless little gooblies who are going to get you. I love it. After that, we've got the Twins of Discord. It's not two people talking on Discord. All right. 7 mana, 8/6 Eldrazi. Whenever you attack, choose odd or even. Creatures with mana value of that quality can't block this turn. Interesting. That's the first time we've seen the wording of that quality. Also, this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that Wizards hasn't explained that 0 counts as even. They expect you to just know. Each other color's creature you control has Bloodthirst too. This is like, if you love Eldrazi and want to have some extra Eldrazi action, you can put him in, right? And like, that's not too shabby, but it doesn't really blow my socks off. The artwork is epic, though. He's got some real insane Eldrazi look to him. He's got like the skull head at the front with some arms coming up, but it looks like he's got a second head sticking out the back, kind of making me think of that movie Malignant. If you haven't seen it, I don't really watch horror movies very much, but Malignant is a special beast. It's absolutely worth watching. So this one's in the middle of the road. Doesn't really get me too hyped up, but it's also not garbage. Then we've got the reprint of Eldrazi Monument. This card's awesome. 5 mana. It gives creatures you control +1/+1 flying and indestructible. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sack a creature. And if you can't, then you lose the monument. The flavor text says, gods don't die. They merely slumber. Imagine finding this. You're exploring Ixalan, and all of a sudden you find this gigantic flying statue. What even is this crazy being, right? And somehow by attuning yourself to it, you're like, I literally can't be harmed. Like, bro, you could be 1,000 feet up in the air on one of those flying rocks and just bam, I'm gonna leap off and free fall. Bam, you hit the ground, no problem. And as a human, remember, you're like 1/1, 2/2, all of a sudden you're 50% stronger, like Jet Li. Oh, I'm the one and a bunch of the other me's are dead. Apparently I'm on a big movie kick today, referencing them. Moving on, we've got Bismuth Mindrender. 1 black and 3 for a 4/3 with Devoid and Menace. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You can cast that card by paying life equal to its mana value, rather than paying its mana cost. This is strong, right? The fact that it's got Menace means if they only have 1 blocker, you're going to get to swing through. The fact that you can cast the spells with your own life, we've seen it with Bolas' Citadel. Being able to cast spells using your own life to circumvent the casting cost is really sick. And speaking of sick, look at the artwork, bro. At first, you might just see the crazy Eldrazi with his floating nutty head plates and all his limbs, but then you realize, wait a minute, he's got somebody in his clutches and he's literally ripping their mind apart. Like, it's bad enough to have black mages rooting around in your mind using that swap magic, but it's a whole nother level to have an alien being that's unlike anything you've ever encountered rooting around in your mind and then pulling something out of it and bringing it into existence. Discard spells just make you pitch it. But in this situation, you have an Eldrazi who can take your nightmares and bring them to life in front of you. That is so epically flavorful. Then Morphin's back. So there you go. You want some Eldrazi action? counts as an Eldrazi. People are going to be really stoked about this because they love Morophon. He's the Changing Lord. 7 mana, 6/6. When he enters a battlefield, choose a creature type. Spells of the chosen type you cast cost 1 of every color less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you'd pay. Other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So, I mean, obviously you're not really going to want to use this with Eldrazi, but all the other creature types, yeah, why not? And I've always found the artwork to be interesting for this card because you've got Morophon traveling in the middle, taking on different aspects of the things around him. You've got the stag off to the side, the bears off to the side, the mastodon. So you've got the horns, you've got the stag antlers. But it's crazy to me that it feels like those bears are traveling on what looks like a giant ice floe when it just looks like a normal, calm, sunny day. I want to know the geography of this place too. Does that have something to do with Velis Vel? Either way, Morophon is the most interesting changeling that's ever been made. After that, we've got the Eldrazi Confluence. 2 colorless and 2 instant. Choose 3. You can choose the same mode more than once. Target creature gets +3/-3 until end of turn. So if you want to do that 3 times, you could give a creature -9 toughness, or you could use it as removal on 3 different creatures. And this actually ties into an old card that's, what is it called? Warp Reality, Twisted Reality, something like that. But it's an old Eldrazi spell. One colorless and 1. Target creature gets +3/-3 because just being around the Eldrazi warps your body into crazy shapes. So that's the first of the 3 abilities. The second is exile target non-land permanent, then return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control, or create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token with sack this creature, add 1. For me, the last ability, 4 mana instant speed to create 3 1/1s, pretty underwhelming. Being able to exile permanents, not too bad. You can use that in a defensive capability to stop your opponent from swinging on you. You can use it to save your own guys from a board wipe. So when you take all the abilities together, it's got some versatility. Let's say there's only 1 creature you want to get rid of with -3. There's only 1 permanent you want to exile. You can use the getting 1/1s in an alright fashion. Plus, I suppose, because they sack for mana, you can go 4 mana, cast this, and then the next turn you lay a land, you're up to 5 lands, but you got those tokens as well, so it can ramp you up to 8 mana faster. So I might be devaluing the Scion part of it just a little bit, and whatever, right? Who cares if I am? So the artwork shows an Eldrazi, which looks like they're in like an impact crater, almost like they literally like landed just down, like hurtling down from the sky, boom, into the ground. Although what's going on around them might be the remnants of 3 people who were torn apart by its warping presence getting that -3 to their toughness, right? Imagine what -3 is going to do to a poor little hapless human that only has 1 toughness. That is pretty epic. And I love the vista that's going on here behind it. This artwork is enjoyable. Obviously, I'd like it to be a little less blurry, but hey, what are you going to do? Then we've got Spawn Bread Protector. Don't even think about making toast out of my bread. 7 mana for a 6/8. At the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 target Eldrazi creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and create 2 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature tokens with sack this creature, add a colorless. The Scions before, if I'm not mistaken, they used to make them 0/1, so they've stepped up the power level. It says they are mere vestiges of the Titan's true form. Their deaths are but a brief respite. That's awesome. Like, if you don't know how the actual Eldrazi work, the main 3, they are so mammoth that they exist inside the blind eternities, right? Like, they can't actually fully enter into any plane because just by fully entering the plane, they would completely obliterate it from existence. The way it's been described is the Eldrazi's presence is essentially just the equivalent of their finger reaching into the world. That's it. That's how much of their body. So when you see the gigantic Emrakul, that's the equivalent of like a fingertip, and anything more would unmake everything. So when you see these 6/8s and they feel so gigantic, they're like 1 skin cell off of an Eldrazi. They're nothing, which the flavor level on that is really, really cool. And the fact that they were able to trap the Eldrazi in slumber originally is also a testament to the ingenuity and power of trying to figure out how to overcome such titanic beings, man. I really, really love the original Zendikar storyline. Moving on. We've got Ulamog's Dreadsire, 10 mana for a 10/10 vigilance. It's got Ward, sack a permanent with mana value 1 or greater, so you can't be sacking no land, son. You gotta sack something at least substantial of 1 mana. And it's got tap, create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. How awesome is that? The flavor text says, a general's only as good as their army. Maybe Ulamog is a better leader than I thought. All right, so this is clearly in the past because that's Gideon Jura, and he ain't with us anymore, right? I love this card because I love big dumb creatures, and I loved Godsire back in the day, the 8/8 vigilance that makes an 8/8 token. This is just stepped up to the next level, and it's called the Dreadsire as a nod to the Godsire. I love it. He sires other huge Eldrazi on behalf of Ulamog. Make more. And I like the fact that you have the gigantic Titanic Eldrazi in the front, and then you can see in the background, oh no, there's more of them. He's just created more. Imagine that. Imagine one of these shows up and you're the defenders of Zendikar. And you're firing your arrows at it. They're just disintegrating out of existence. Boop, gone. You don't even see them. What? And then all of a sudden, you're just like, how are we going to take this down? And then it just splits out a new one. And you're just like, no, 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 no. And it keeps making more of these. And you're like, one of them is too much. What are we even going to do? What are we even going to do? This thing can attack and make a copy of itself every turn. That is so bonkers. I love it. This is absolutely going in my cube. So this was an awesome one to end it off on. This is the last spoiler. So I'll be doing a live stream over on my other channel if you want to come and hang out and talk about Magic or whatever else. I did one last night on the Hatsune Miku secret lair. I'll leave it linked up here because it's on the live stream archive now. If you want to go and see it, it's full of not just spoilers, but also great laughs because I got dressed up as Hatsune Miku, and you have to see it to believe it. I will end off by saying a big thank you to my patrons for financially supporting my work. I genuinely appreciate it. You guys mean a lot to me. Thanks for coming by, everybody, and I'll see you all in the next video.